P. Diddy and the world's eyes were glued to the courtroom as the music mogul faced the trial of a lifetime, his tan sweater replacing the expected jail jumpsuit and signaling a dramatic turn no one saw coming. The morning was unusually quiet for the streets of Los Angeles, a calm that belied the storm about to hit the life of one of the world's most famous music moguls. P. Diddy, known for his larger-than-life persona and commanding presence in both the music and business worlds, awoke in his sprawling mansion, unaware that his life was about to take a drastic turn. Outside, news helicopters hovered, and the faint hum of engines and cameras hinted at the chaos that would soon descend. Law enforcement had planned every detail meticulously, yet even their confidence could not mask the enormity of what was about to unfold. Moments later, a convoy of unmarked vehicles arrived at the estate, officers stepping out with a sense of urgency that made it clear this was no ordinary morning. The media, alerted to the situation, began snapping photos as the scene quickly spiraled into a spectacle. Within the walls of the mansion, there was a sense of disbelief. For years, P. Diddy had lived at the intersection of fame and power, a man whose name alone could command attention and respect. His life was a carefully curated combination of glamour, music, and business acumen. Yet, on this morning, none of that would shield him. As the officers approached, he remained composed, his face a mask that betrayed little emotion. Handcuffs clicked into place, and the flash of cameras captured the rare, unsettling sight of the superstar being escorted away. Fans and onlookers were stunned, some cheering, some whispering in disbelief, unable to reconcile the man they admired with the gravity of the charges. The arrest, shrouded in secrecy until this very moment, had been the culmination of weeks of investigation that the public had only heard fragments of in passing headlines and speculative news stories. Inside the police vehicles, the atmosphere was tense. Investigators discussed procedural details, evidence, and strategy, fully aware that the world was watching every move. Meanwhile, P. Diddy sat quietly, a figure of both curiosity and fascination for anyone observing. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the flurry of activity around him, creating a surreal tableau that blurred the line between reality and spectacle. The implications of the arrest were enormous. Beyond the immediate legal consequences, the situation threatened to ripple across the music industry, business ventures, and personal relationships, leaving a trail of uncertainty and speculation in its wake. As the convoy moved through the streets, fans began gathering, their smartphones raised to capture every angle of what had become a live event. Social media exploded almost instantaneously, with trending hashtags, viral clips, and countless theories about the circumstances that led to this moment. The arrest was more than a legal action. It was a cultural shockwave, challenging perceptions of fame, power, and accountability. Every photograph and video frame seemed to tell a different story, highlighting the complexity of a man whose life had been defined by success and scrutiny in equal measure. Even as the cameras clicked and the headlines raced across the globe, one thing remained clear. This arrest marked the beginning of an extraordinary and unpredictable journey, one that would captivate millions and reveal truths that no one could have anticipated. As the news of P. Diddy's arrest spread, the world seemed to shift on its axis. Headlines screamed, social media feeds exploded, and speculation ran wild in every corner of the internet. What had initially appeared to be a straightforward legal matter began revealing layers of complexity few could have anticipated. Investigators sifted through mountains of documents, emails, and financial records, each page uncovering details that cast new shadows over the mogul's public image. What had once been rumors about questionable business dealings now took on a sense of urgency, as evidence suggested far more than minor missteps. Friends, collaborators, and former associates were called in for questioning, their accounts revealing a man who was simultaneously generous and calculating, a figure of loyalty and secrecy intertwined. Every revelation added tension to an already volatile situation, keeping the public and the media on edge. The legal team scrambled to respond, analyzing every angle to protect their client while anticipating every possible maneuver from prosecutors. Meanwhile, forensic experts combed through evidence that had previously been overlooked or misunderstood. Each discovery seemed to rewrite the story, shifting assumptions about who was involved and what had truly occurred. For those following the case, certainty was impossible to find. One moment, the narrative seemed clear. The next, contradictory information sent shockwaves through both the courtroom and the headlines. The public, hungry for clarity, watched closely as each twist emerged, some cheering, some questioning, and many simply trying to process the unfolding drama. Rumors of plea deals and secret negotiations began circulating, fueling speculation that nothing in this case was as it seemed. Whispers of insider agreements, financial arrangements, and unspoken promises created a sense of unease, suggesting that the legal battle extended far beyond the courtroom. Every statement from lawyers, every leak to the press, carried weight, hinting at a strategy carefully designed to balance transparency and secrecy. The Mogul's world, once filled with music, luxury, and business deals, had transformed into a labyrinth of legal, personal, and public challenges, each demanding careful navigation. Amid the chaos, P. Diddy remained a study in contrast. Publicly, he appeared composed, his demeanor almost serene, while privately the stakes weighed heavily. Friends and insiders spoke of long nights spent strategizing, reviewing evidence, and preparing for moments that could define the course of his life. The complexity of the situation left no room for error. Every action mattered, every misstep carried consequences, and every revelation had the potential to alter the trajectory of the case entirely. As the investigation deepened, the world realized that this was more than a story about fame meeting the law. It was a story of power, influence, and the hidden intricacies of a life lived in the spotlight. Each discovery, each new piece of evidence, added another layer of intrigue, blurring the lines between personal choices and public consequences. The narrative was shifting constantly, unpredictable in every sense, keeping everyone, lawyers, fans, media, and observers alike, on edge. It became increasingly clear that no one could anticipate the next move, and that every revelation would bring the story closer to a shocking resolution that no one would forget. The courtroom was filled with an electric tension that seemed to hum through every corner. Reporters, photographers, and curious onlookers packed the benches, their eyes fixed on the man at the center of the storm. P. Diddy entered the room with a measured stride, dressed in a tan sweater that immediately drew attention. It was a stark contrast to the typical jail-issued attire many expected, and whispers filled the room as spectators tried to decipher the meaning behind the choice. Some saw it as a subtle act of defiance, a refusal to be defined by the charges. Others viewed it as a vulnerable display, a humanizing glimpse at a man often portrayed as larger than life. Regardless of interpretation, the moment was undeniably symbolic, setting the tone for what would become an unforgettable courtroom drama. As proceedings began, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Lawyers on both sides presented evidence with meticulous care, each argument layered with strategy and precision. Witnesses were called, their testimonies weaving a complex web of alliances, betrayals, and hidden truths. Some spoke of business dealings gone wrong, while others described personal interactions that hinted at a side of P. Diddy few had ever seen. Every account added weight to the unfolding narrative, and every detail seemed to challenge the assumptions of the public and the jury alike. Observers could feel the tension rising, as though the very air in the courtroom was charged with uncertainty. The judge, a figure renowned for both fairness and an unwavering presence, presided with a steady hand, yet even their composure seemed tested by the case's revelations. Questions were asked, evidence scrutinized, and every statement dissected for hidden meaning. Photographers captured fleeting expressions, a slight furrowed brow, a subtle clench of a jaw, a glance that spoke volumes without words. The courtroom became a stage where every gesture mattered, and P. Diddy, despite the weight of the charges, commanded attention not through spectacle, but through presence. The tan sweater, simple yet deliberate, became a visual anchor for a story unfolding in real time. As hours turned into days, the intensity of the trial only grew. Legal arguments collided with personal narratives, creating a mosaic of complexity that defied simple judgment. Experts weighed in on financial transactions and communications, breaking down intricate details that revealed both cunning strategy and human vulnerability. The courtroom felt alive, a space where history seemed to bend under the weight of unfolding events. Outside, news outlets reported every development, social media buzzed with live commentary, and fans debated every twist. The spectacle of fame and law collided, producing a narrative as gripping as any thriller, yet rooted in the reality of human emotion and consequence. By the end of the week, the courtroom had transformed from a simple venue of legal procedure into a theater of suspense. Every revelation, every piece of evidence, every subtle exchange of glances added layers to a story that the world could not stop watching. P. Diddy's presence, framed by the tan sweater, became a symbol not just of a trial, but of the intersection between celebrity, power, and vulnerability. As the proceedings pressed on, it was clear that this chapter of the saga was far from over. The courtroom had witnessed only a portion of the story, and the next twist, hidden yet inevitable, was waiting just beyond the threshold. Just when the trial seemed to be moving toward a predictable conclusion, an unexpected twist shook the courtroom and everyone following the story. Evidence that had been presumed lost for months suddenly resurfaced, throwing previous assumptions into chaos. Investigators scrambled to authenticate documents and recordings, realizing that these materials could completely alter the trajectory of the case. The public, glued to every headline and live broadcast, was left reeling as speculation ran rampant about how this revelation might change the fate of one of the most famous figures in modern entertainment. It was a moment that reminded everyone that in a case like this, certainty was elusive, and the next turn could arrive without warning. The newly discovered evidence revealed layers of complexity that nobody had anticipated. Financial transactions, previously thought straightforward, now contained inconsistencies suggesting hidden agreements and unrecorded deals. Emails and private messages exposed relationships that had been carefully concealed, showing alliances, betrayals, and unspoken pressures among associates, partners, and friends. Every piece of information added a new dimension to the case, demonstrating that what the public had seen in headlines was only a fraction of the true story. The revelation shifted not just legal perspectives, but also public perception, forcing fans and critics alike to reconsider their assumptions about P. Diddy and the world he navigated. As experts analyzed the evidence, conflicting interpretations emerged. Some argued it was a technicality that could significantly reduce the charges, while others warned it might complicate the case further, exposing vulnerabilities previously unseen. Lawyers on both sides adjusted their strategies, incorporating this last-minute development into arguments, motions, and public statements. The courtroom became a place of heightened tension, as the judge, jury, and spectators grappled with the implications. Each side presented its version of the new evidence, creating a dynamic where certainty was impossible, and every revelation seemed to contradict the last. The trial had become a maze of intricacies, a puzzle in which every piece carried weighty consequences. Beyond the legal implications, the twist had a deeply personal dimension. Letters, voice recordings, and confidential communications revealed emotions, intentions, and conflicts that had remained hidden until now. It became apparent that loyalty, ambition, and human error had all played a role in the unfolding drama. P. Diddy was no longer simply a defendant. He was a figure navigating a complex network of relationships, choices, and consequences. The world, previously focused on the spectacle of a celebrity facing the law, was now witnessing a human story of vulnerability, strategy, and resilience. As the days passed, the courtroom and media alike were gripped by anticipation, knowing that the final chapters of this saga were approaching but unable to predict what they would hold. The twist had shifted the narrative, ensuring that the story was no longer linear or easily explained. Every observation, every revelation, and every detail contributed to a suspenseful atmosphere in which nothing could be taken for granted. The public waited, captivated and anxious, aware that the outcome could redefine not just the case, but also the perception of one of the world's most iconic figures. The drama had deepened, and the stage was set for a conclusion that would be as emotional and shocking as the twists that had brought the story to this point. The day of sentencing arrived with a weight that seemed to press down on the entire courtroom. From early morning, spectators filled every available seat. Journalists lined the perimeter with cameras at the ready, and social media buzzed with speculation and anticipation. P. Diddy entered with the same measured calm he had shown throughout the trial, wearing the tan sweater that had become emblematic of his presence in the courtroom. The simplicity of his attire contrasted sharply with the gravity of the moment, creating a powerful visual that would be remembered long after the gavel fell. Every eye in the room was fixed on him, sensing that this was more than a legal proceeding. It was a culmination of months of drama, tension, and revelation that had captivated millions around the world. The judge took the bench, their demeanor steady yet carrying an undercurrent of solemnity. Documents were reviewed, the final statements were made, and the courtroom waited in taut silence. The moment felt suspended in time, each second stretching longer than the last. Observers could see subtle reactions from all corners of the room, the shift of a hand, a tightened jaw, a breath held just a little too long. Outside the courtroom, fans and media alike hung on every update, the collective anticipation creating an almost electric atmosphere across the city and beyond. The world was watching a man whose life had always been on display, now facing one of his most personal and consequential moments under the harshest scrutiny. As the judge began to deliver the verdict, the tension became nearly unbearable. Words were weighed carefully, their impact resonating far beyond the courtroom walls. P. Diddy remained composed, but the depth of emotion was visible in fleeting expressions, a slight lowering of the gaze, a pause that hinted at reflection, a momentary tightening of the lips. Those present could sense the gravity not only of the sentence, but of the journey that had led to this point. Every twist, every revelation, every unexpected turn of the case had led to this climactic moment, where past actions and hidden complexities would be acknowledged and addressed. The courtroom became a place where fame, vulnerability, and accountability intersected, creating a scene as emotionally charged as any headline or broadcast could convey. When the final words were spoken, a ripple of emotion spread throughout the room. Some spectators wept quietly, others sat in stunned silence, and a few exchanged glances that reflected the collective impact of the decision. The sentence was more than a legal judgment. It was a moment of reckoning, a turning point in a story that had kept the world enthralled. P. Diddy, who had navigated a labyrinth of fame, fortune, and controversy, now faced the consequences with the same presence and poise that had defined his public persona. The tan sweater, simple yet symbolic, captured the tension between vulnerability and strength, showing a man humanized by circumstance yet unbroken in spirit. As the courtroom emptied and the cameras ceased their relentless clicking, it became clear that the story would leave a lasting mark. P. Diddy emerged transformed, not merely by the sentence, but by the journey that had exposed hidden truths, tested relationships, and revealed the intricate balance of power, loyalty, and consequence. The world had witnessed more than a trial. It had witnessed a human drama of extraordinary scale. In the days and months to follow, reflections, discussions, and debates would continue, but the emotional resonance of that day, the weight of judgment, the tension of uncertainty, and the poignancy of a man facing his destiny would remain indelible in the memory of all who had watched.